Hi everyone, thank you all for watching my interview with Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. First of all, wow, the sheer volume of media coverage and comments and feedback in response to the interview. I've gotten a ton of questions about my approach to the interview itself and just wanted to try to answer a few of them. First of all, someone asked, were the questions pre-screened? No, the questions were not pre-screened. We never give questions to a guest in advance. But there is always a general understanding of the goals for the interview. And in this case, the goal was to really try to understand Meghan as a businesswoman. So that's why we focused on her strategy and her approach. And I was surprised to find out she's really deep in the details, it seems, with both her show and the brand as ever. But a celebrity brand is only as strong as the celebrity's image it's based on. So being liked is important, which is why we talked a lot about authenticity and why I asked, are we seeing the real her? Next question. Did her team get final cut approval? No. Again, that's not something that we do. When you do an interview on the circuit, you just have to trust that you'll get fair and balanced treatment. And hopefully when guests look back at all the episodes and see our body of work, hopefully they see the results and they decide that this is something that they want to do. But the first time that Meghan's team saw the interview is when you all saw the interview. All right, next question. How can I become better at interviewing and how do you connect with guests so well? First of all, thank you. I think I will forever be a student of interviewing. The best interviewers to me are really good listeners. Yes, I do a ton of research and I go on with a plan and I have an amazing team that helps me do that. But you also have to be able to listen and follow the guest where they're going and sense sort of how far you can push them. And the whole goal of the show really is to get people to open up and to see a side of them you've never seen before. And it was Meghan's idea to get burgers and beer. And I thought, hey, that's different. Maybe we'll see a different side of her. And really, I wanted her to feel comfortable enough to answer interesting questions, but also tough questions that are respectful but revealing. So whatever you thought of the interview, it has been an experience. And I'd love to hear who else you want to see on the circuit. Let me know in the comments.
Welcome back, viewers. Today, we find ourselves knee-deep in yet another controversy. This time, it revolves around Meghan Sussex's recent interview with Emily Chang. The interview, as you may recall, caused quite a stir, not just because of what Meghan said, but also due to claims about its authenticity. Critics were quick to pounce, alleging that the interview was not as spontaneous as it seemed. They suggested that Meghan, ever the actress, had the questions in advance, or that her team had somehow orchestrated the entire event. But here's the twist. Emily Chang, the interviewer herself, has now responded to these allegations. And her answers, they're as clear as a bell, leaving no room for misinterpretation or spin. She shot down the critics, stating unequivocally that no questions were given to Meghan before the interview. Moreover, she's categorically denied that Meghan's team had any control over the content that was aired. What does this mean? It means that Meghan did not have the luxury of preparation. She was not privy to the questions beforehand. She did not have any control over what was aired. Her composure, her eloquence, her candidness, everything was real, raw and authentic. And yet, the critics continue to deny this reality, insisting that if Meghan appears composed, it must be because the interview was scripted. But Emily's clarification proves otherwise. It shows that Meghan handled the interview authentically, without any edits or approval. This controversy is not just about an interview, it's about the double standards that Meghan has been subjected to time and again. When other royals sit for carefully managed appearances, no one bats an eyelid. But when Meghan does the same, it's suddenly scandalous. Emily Chang's response exposes the ones truly spinning the narrative. And let me tell you, it's not Meghan, but Emily Chang herself has now responded and her answers leave no room for spin. Critics tried to push two narratives. So, let's dive right into this whirlpool of speculation, shall we? First claim on the docket, the notion that the questions Emily Chang posed to Meghan were pre-screened. As in, Meghan had seen them beforehand, knew what to expect, and hence had a chance to prepare her answers, which, if true, would certainly take some of the spontaneity out of the interview, wouldn't it? Well, Emily Chang had a response to that. A pretty straightforward one, if we might add. She said, and I quote, "No, we never give questions to our guests before the interview." So that's that. No pre-screened questions, no prior knowledge, just Meghan answering in real time on the spot. Second claim, that Meghan's team had control over the interview process, that they had a say in what aired and what didn't. Well, here again, Emily Chang's response was a resounding no. No control, no edits, no approval from Meghan's team, that's it. Clear and simple. Meghan didn't get the questions beforehand, and her team had zero control over what aired. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that the critics' claims, both the notion of pre-screened questions and the idea of control over the interview process, are unfounded. It means that Meghan's composure and eloquence during the interview were not the result of a carefully orchestrated setup, but rather a testament to her authenticity and raw honesty. And perhaps most importantly, it means that the narrative being spun by critics, this narrative of manipulation and control, is just that, a narrative, a story, a fabrication. So, let's set the record straight. Meghan Sussex didn't need any filters or pre-approval to shine in that interview. She did it all on her own, authentically and unapologetically, and she did it with a grace and poise that can't be scripted or pre-planned. That's it, clear and simple. Meghan didn't get the questions beforehand, and her team had zero control over what aired. This matters because critics always claim if Meghan looks composed, it must be scripted. And there, my friends, lies the crux of the issue. The double standard that has been so glaringly applied to Meghan Sussex compared to other high-profile figures is stark and quite frankly unfair. You see, when Meghan demonstrates grace under pressure, articulates her thoughts eloquently, and handles tough questions with aplomb, critics are quick to dismiss her accomplishments. They claim it must be scripted, pre-rehearsed, or tightly controlled by her team. But is this because they cannot fathom that Meghan, in her own right, is capable of such composure? Or is it simply a case of eager critics, ready to pounce on any perceived misstep? Let's take a moment to consider this. Other royals, and indeed other celebrities, routinely sit for interviews. They answer questions, they share their thoughts, they engage with the public. Yet when they do so, no one rushes to claim that their interviews are scripted or their responses rehearsed. No one insists that their team must have had control over what aired. Why then do these claims persist when it comes to Meghan? To put it bluntly, it's a painful double standard. The same behaviour that is accepted, even celebrated, in others becomes a point of vicious criticism when it comes to Meghan. The critics were silenced when Emily Chang, the interviewer herself, stepped forward. She confirmed that Meghan didn't receive the questions in advance. She also clarified that Meghan's team had no control over the content that was aired. No, she said, in response to both these claims, simple, clear, and leaving no room for ambiguity. What does this tell us? It proves that Meghan's interview was authentic. It shows that she handled the situation with grace, intelligence, and authenticity. It wasn't a carefully orchestrated performance, but a genuine conversation between two individuals. It was Meghan, being Meghan, unfiltered, unscripted, and undeniably herself. And yet, despite this confirmation, critics continue to spin their own narratives. They continue to perpetuate this double standard, holding Meghan to a different set of expectations than they do for others. But who is really spinning the narrative here? Emily Chang's statement should put an end to these discussions. It should silence the critics and their baseless claims. It should, but unfortunately it probably won't. Because for some, it's easier to believe in a contrived narrative than to accept the truth. The truth that Meghan Sussex is just as capable, just as composed, and just as authentic as any other public figure. Emily Chang shutting this down shows exactly who is spinning the narrative. And it's not Meghan. It's the critics, with their double standards and their relentless pursuit of controversy. But let's remember, the truth always has a way of coming out, and in this case it's clear for all to see. Meghan Sussex, authentic and unscripted, remains undeterred in the face of criticism, and that, my friends, is the narrative we should be focusing on. So, there you have it. No pre-approved questions, no staged setup, just Meghan being her authentic self. Throughout our conversation today, we've debunked the critics' claims and shone a light on the double standards that Meghan Sussex continues to face. Emily Chang's clarification has been crystal clear. Meghan did not receive the questions beforehand, nor did her team have any control over what aired. This is a testament to her ability to handle herself in the public eye with grace and composure. It's important to remember that authenticity cannot be scripted, and Meghan has shown us time and again that she doesn't need a script to shine. We've also discussed the glaring double standards at play. While other public figures are given the benefit of the doubt, Meghan is scrutinised and questioned at every turn. It's a narrative that's been spun around her, but it's not one she's perpetuating. It's a reflection of the society we live in, where women, particularly women of colour, are held to different standards. But Meghan has risen above the noise, continuing to engage in important conversations and using her platform to advocate for causes close to her heart. Her authenticity shines through, regardless of the critics' attempts to undermine her. This conversation is not just about Meghan, it's about how we perceive and treat public figures. It's about the narratives we spin and the standards we uphold. It's about time we start acknowledging these biases and challenging them. In conclusion, Meghan's interview with Emily Chang was not a stage setup, but an authentic conversation. Meghan continues to handle herself with grace and authenticity, despite the critics and the double standards. She remains a figure of strength and resilience, using her platform to make a difference. What do you think, viewers? Drop your thoughts below and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. See you next time.